Hi, everyone, and welcome to my premiere show, Cybersecureyou. Thank you for joining us today. I am just so happy to be doing this again. I'm back in the radio world and doing the show, and I have a very special guest that I have with me today. He is a world-renowned cybersecurity specialist. He's created the book Hacked Again, also Cybersecurity is Everybody's Business, and he's also created additional books for seniors. Please welcome my guest, Scott Schober. Hi, Scott, how are you?
Oh, great. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on,
Yes,
Val.
thanks for being on. You've been on so many different platforms spreading the word about cybersecurity. So why don't you, you've been on CNN, Bloomberg TV, Good Morning America. You've done a plethora of stuff. So why don't you tell us, how your cyber journey began?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think back a number of years ago, we were selling security tools to many different companies, mostly tied to mobile phones and keeping them secure. And the more I talked to people about security and vulnerabilities and how to stay safe, the more I started to get a target on my back. And after a while, cyber criminals started to go after myself. I didn't realize it at first, but eventually I started to realize something's not right. And I had my credit card compromised, my debit card compromised, my Twitter account was compromised and taken over. I received repeated DDoS attacks where they flood your website with junk traffic. And finally, I had $65,000 stolen out of my checking account. And I realized something is wrong. And it became a federal investigation, big mess. And that led eventually to me writing my first book, Hacked Again. And ever since then, I've just been constantly talking about the dangers of being hacked, cyber criminals, and ways to stay safe.
Wonderful. I was hacked severely.
Hmm.
And one of the issues I found when it came to getting help was finding someone that could help and having the help come at a cost effective, in a cost effective manner. So, I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars for individuals like myself to get help. And so, how were you able to? I know you're in the business, but how did you get law enforcement to take your situation serious and be able to give you the help you needed?
That's a great question. In fact, I had a little bit of trouble at first, even when I was compromised, the checking account, $65,000 was taken. I called up the bank. I immediately complained. I brought law enforcement in, complained, and I asked for information. I said, "Hey, who took this? Where did the money get wired from my account to what account?" And they wouldn't tell me. And I said, "Wait a minute, I have the legal right to know this is my account where the money went." So I had to press and I had to push. And then through the investigation, they finally acquiesced and said, "All right, well, we'll share. Here's the account. Oh, this amount of money went toward a woman paying off her mortgage, and this
Wow.
this amount of money went to so and so." And what I did was my own research. Then I went and located some of these individuals, finding that they were on the dark web, and some of these individuals were notorious cyber criminals, and that was really scary to me.
No, that's absolutely scary. And I found out my information ended up on the dark web, and I hired a digital forensics company to
Hmm.
help me out. But hackers, they jump in, they jump out.
Yeah.
And so they're able to go undetected when someone is actively looking at a specialist is looking at the account. And I
Yep.
thought, oh my God, what am I going to do here? And I said, well, can you guys get my information off the dark web? And they said, there's no way.
Yep.
So are
Yeah.
you in agreement with that? So once a person's information is on the dark web, that's it.
Yeah, it's really hard to get that information off. You can push it and suppress it to some degree. It's complex, it's expensive. It doesn't really do much to get it off there because in a sense, all our information is out there, and especially once it's compromised. More importantly, is being proactive. When your information appears associated to something else, such as maybe, Val, if your email is compromised or someone hacks into your LinkedIn account, let's say, and proactively you can be alerted when that information, when your login credentials are compromised, you can do something about it. You can now go and actually change your password before the hacker will change the password and take over your account. I do that often. I work with a company, it's called Cyberlytica, and they do dark web audits and scans. And they basically send me a report anytime any of my login credentials or my name or passwords are used in a suspicious way where there might be a breach. And again, it gives me an early alert so I can respond and act. That's what's really important.
Um, so for the individuals that are severely hacked, okay, like myself, where,
Mhm.
for instance, I had LastPass, and before I know it, like the hackers got into my email account, and they were able to pretend to be me and send an email to the company for the diagnostics or something like that, like the background information, so that they can look through that and maybe pick out the passwords that I had stored in LastPass. And I thought, oh my God, okay, what, how can I let these people know that it's not me who sent that email? Even though I said it, there's no calling LastPass up. You can't call them. They just want emails, right? They just want you to communicate that way. And I just found myself stuck and just in this cycle that I feel like I can't get out of because I'm so far gone. Are there methods for individuals? I know you got to change your password as soon as you find out, but sometimes once they've gotten into your devices and they attach these keyloggers and they install all these hidden software programs, it's like, how's this ever going to end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point you make. You really got to stay one step ahead, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And unless you're in the industry, which I am, it could be hard for the average user. But there are some basic things that you can and should do. Well, first of all, with regards to password managers, and again, I don't want to knock anyone. I just want to share with what's out there, what's been reported. If you look at LastPass, they've got a little bit of a rough track record. They have been compromised several times. In other words, they've been hacked. At some point, when a password manager company is hacked, that can be dangerous because you entrust them to keep your data secure. Most, if not all, of the password managing companies do have everything encrypted. So hopefully, when they're hacked and data's compromised, it's encrypted, it's hard for them to decrypt that and actually see in plain text what your password is. It's not necessarily the case because some of them don't use great encryption algorithms. They may not be using the latest AES 256-bit encryption or military grade and hashing and doing everything properly because it's expensive and it's more time consuming. So some people cheap out a little bit, and some people also don't store it properly. So there are some risks there. Personally, I use a hybrid approach. I use old school, write down the passwords that are most near and dear to me in a black book and use layers of security. My black book is locked in a safe, locked in an office, locked in a building that's alarmed with cameras.
Wow.
Nobody's going to get through all that, or they'll have to get through all the layers till they find my passwords. Number one. Those are my most secure things. Other passwords, I will use Dashlane. I like them. They have not been compromised to my knowledge at all. And they're very secure, relatively easy to use, and affordable. So they have a nice balance and compromise between things. And then also, I think when you're creating passwords, the key is you kind of create a long, strong password that's almost impossible to remember. That means it's almost impossible to hack. And that's really fundamentally what's difficult. A lot of people don't want to do that. So if you're using LastPass or anybody, Dashlane doesn't matter. Your master password's really got to be long and strong because if that's compromised, you're dead. They got the keys to the kingdom. Val, they'll get every password you have, and you're in trouble otherwise. So you
Yeah,
do have a lot of
absolutely,
caution.
Scott, because I believe that's where it started for me. I had the same password for almost everything. And
Yeah.
to me, it was a difficult password for someone to guess because it was personal. It was something that I found to be my favorite thing, and so I used that. But that was also something that was easily, it was no more than I think 8 letters with a couple numbers and an exclamation mark, and boom. And one count led to another, and my 2-factor authentication was able to be changed. I do have an interesting question for you because,
Sure.
do you believe that Apple products can be hacked?
Well, first of all, I want to just point out there, nothing's 100% secure. everything can be hacked.
Okay.
It's how much effort and time a cyber criminal will put forth to try to compromise that. So if you ask me, would I rather use a debit card, a credit card, or Apple Pay or Google Wallet? I'm going to gravitate toward Apple Pay. Why? Because my phone is on my person. I keep that secure
Okay.
because I'm using facial authentication to turn it on. I'm keeping encryption on it. I'm using Apple Pay, which is using end-to-end encryption, both hardware and software. The credit card with Apple Pay is never sent from my phone through the ecosystem to the bank, but rather a one-time encrypted tokenized transmission. So if a hacker was to intercept that, they don't have my credit card.
Right.
It's secure, it's safe, it works. It's not accepted everywhere, but if I had to say on the levels of security, it's probably toward the top of the most secure. Therefore, whenever I'm going to pay, I'm going to opt for using Apple Pay 100 times over using a credit card.
Okay.
Every time. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
So
Okay.
you got to pick and choose what's the most secure for you and balance that. Choose security over convenience, but you have to balance it. If I go to a gas station, it doesn't accept Apple Pay. Am I going to use my credit card? No. Why? Because most of these gas pumps are prone to what? Skimmers. Magnetic stripe on the bottom of your card. Even if you have chip and pin, it's going to get your credit card number if a skimmer is placed in there by a cyber criminal.
Right.
Therefore, what am I going to do? Pay cash. Not convenient, but a lot more secure. So again, balancing it and finding that right compromise to keep you secure is what I have to always do.
Right. And so with the Berkeley Veritronic Systems, you're the CEO of your company, and
Yes.
your company is the Berkeley Veritronic Systems. Are you able to help individuals with the end-to-end encryption? You know, you have a lot of people that are not cyber savvy. When I first got hacked, I didn't know the first thing about cybercrimes and being cyber secure. I didn't know any of that. So
Yeah.
does your business lend a hand to helping individuals that are unaware of how to maneuver in this cyber hacking world, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot. I do spend a lot of time educating different audiences. In fact, what I started doing was hired often to speak. I was giving keynotes at different security events, be it to government institutions. I was speaking at universities, you name it. I was being hired at different events, and I still speak a lot, but you can only speak at so many events. It does get draining because you got to travel, and I was doing international traveling, and some of these were very technical presentations, some higher level. So you're constantly speaking. So one thing I thought about was if you write a book, it will help more the masses because now you're reaching tens of thousands of people, educating them, sharing tips, sharing your stories, sharing your mistakes so they don't make the same mistakes. So I found that to be a very effective combination of things. And oftentimes I'm hired into companies. I've done several presentations where, say, an insurance company or a reinsurer will hire me. They'll buy 100 copies of my book. I'll go there and present, and each person will read the book in advance, and they can actually ask me questions when I'm there in person presenting. Right. So now they really understand the material and have a little bit more technical knowledge. They're a little bit more savvy as a consumer or as a business owner, and now they can pose very focused questions to me, and I can help them even further. So I think the combination of that, educating people, be it through video, TV, radio, I blog a lot, writing books, public speaking, any way I can share tips with people and help them, I find to be valuable. It parallels our business. Our main products we're selling to US DOD. So I'm selling to the FBI and different branches of law enforcement and Secret Service and so on and so forth, tools that will actually combat credit card theft and crime and things like that. So a lot of our tools parallel cyber crimes that are going on. I think we were chatting the other week, and one of the tools I'm so excited about, we just launched, it actually helps with the problem with stalking. And a lot of poor women are being stalked. That's a problem, and nobody's really addressing it. And that bothers me. So that's when I'll do research, develop tools that will try to help law enforcement better help people that are frustrated because they can't get the help they need.
Well, let's talk about the cyber stalking because I was also cyber stalked. And so, and I'm assuming that goes into the air tags. Are these the air tags that you have developed, or no, the air tags that are being used They're being hidden in cars, they're hidden in women's purses, stuff like that. Women use it, men use it, and it's people are able to track individuals with the cell phone and monitor their activity when they come, when they go, with small little devices.
Yeah, yeah. And if you think about it, and you set that up perfectly because you described it so well, Val.
Thanks.
These air trackers, the big difference between air trackers and traditional GPS trackers, traditional GPS trackers were bulky, batteries didn't last long, you'd have to hide them, but they were kind of little black boxes typically. What's different about the air tags is they're smaller than the size of a quarter. They've got a coin cell battery in there, and they'll last 6 months to a year on that single battery. And they're cheap. They're $29. You could take that, just like as you said, throw it in a woman's purse. And the beauty of the AirTag, as far as a technological standpoint, is they're using the Apple ecosystem. There's 1.5 billion iPhones around the globe. And 85% plus of users of an iPhone keep their Bluetooth on. So what are these tags doing? They're talking through all of our iPhones. So if somebody drops a tag in your purse, sure enough, there's probably somebody around you that has an iPhone. So that AirTag is talking through somebody's iPhone that they don't know and you don't know to relay geocoded information. Now, again, AirTags weren't designed to track people and stalk people. They were designed to track your valuables, like your luggage at the airport or things like that for lost items, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Bad guys said, oh, I can use this for stalking and tracking people. And they're right. It works really good. It's cheap. And it's hard to find the person that placed the tag on the item. So that was a problem that really bothered me. And actually, I was contacted by law enforcement. And there's several investigative groups that are trying to find a solution to the problem of all these stalking issues. So right away, we rolled up our sleeves, started developing a tool. We released an existing tool with added firmware support so we can do AirTag detection. And what we not only do, we don't just detect AirTags, we tell you the confidence level of the AirTag, and we have direction finding antenna. So you can actually now go hunt down this unknown AirTag, just like the MyFind app is on Apple's iPhone. But we tell you, here's the AirTag, here's the address of it, here's the signal strength, and as you get closer to proximity, you see the signal strength increase. And that way you can find the AirTag that's placed illegally on somebody that they're trying to stalk or whatever.
So how is it that an individual would know that an AirTag is the one, it's tracking them, that someone placed this AirTag? Because I know I've always felt like, oh, something, my situation is a bit extreme, and I'll discuss that on a whole nother show. But, I know there's like AirTags that you can literally put, like, I hide it in by the tire, behind the wheel. And so how would a person know? How would a person know if someone's using AirTag to track them? How would they know?
Well, that's really fundamentally the problem that's out there. Unfortunately, they don't know. The only way they know is if they have an iPhone and they're traveling and there's an unknown tag that's traveling within their proximity, they will get an alert. It could be minutes, it could be hours later on. That's the danger of it. Now a stalker may come in and do something crazy because some of these people are nuts out there. Right. They'll go to any length to harass people or stalk people or hurt people, and that's wrong. Unfortunately, there's no early alert. There's no way that you can tell. That's the problem. That's why we developed the tool. With our tool, you turn it on, scan, and in a minute's notice, it will pop up on the screen and it will say Apple AirTag and the ID of that tag. And that way, if law enforcement's there, and we're going to be developing a consumer version that's much lower cost as well, that somebody can keep on their keychain or in their car, and then simply press the button, or it'll automatically pop up and give you an alert, hey, there's an unknown tag in your area, be careful. And that's really what you need, that early warning sign so you can use caution because there could be somebody lurking around or stalking you. And it's a terrible crime because I think oftentimes the person that's the stalker intimidates somebody. And they use force, they use presence, they try to intimidate them, and it starts to affect the emotions of a person. I think they say statistically 1 in 5 women have reported that they face some type of stalking or tracking in their lives. 1 in 17 men have reported it. So it's very disproportionate, which tells me, if statistics are accurate, the poor women are the ones that are really getting abused more and stalked more,
And
and
suffering
more
from
needs to
this,
be
yeah,
done.
absolutely. And so the Yorkie Pro is
Mhm.
what you'll be passing on to the government and FBI,
Yeah,
and they can use this to be able to find the AirTag. So like if I were to call the police because something's going on and I feel like
yeah,
I'm going to be harmed and I'm being tracked,
yep,
then they would come along with this device and be able to scan it versus me
yeah.
going out and buying the device for myself.
Yes, exactly. It's probably that unit is not a consumer device because it's typically sold to law enforcement, to US DoD channels, to sheriffs, to state troopers, things like that. We're actively selling now. So now what we're doing at the same time, realizing that there is a need for a consumer probably that might be in fear, we're developing a low-cost device that's going to be a few $100s that could attach on your purse, attach to your key ring, or throw it in your glove box. If you feel like somebody might be stalking or tracking you, there might be an AirTag drop in your, proximity. You could simply press the button and do a quick scan and instantly know, hey, this is a tag here. I don't know who this is. Heads up, or let me call the police or phone a friend just so I'm not nervous and alone here. And then again, you can try to hunt it down with this because as you get closer to the AirTag, you'll see the signal strength intensity increase. So you may sniff around your car, just like a bug sniffer, very similar to that.
Okay.
And we also have some interesting things. I don't want to dive in too technical, but some of the challenges, and this is why people don't have tools for this, what happens is there's an associated address with each AirTag. And what Apple does, as well as Tile and Chipolo and all these other companies that make little Bluetooth trackers, is they spoof the MAC address every so
Yeah.
often. So we actually put some things in our algorithm there. So if they spoof and change the address, we could still pick it up and see the new address that they have and hunt it down that way. That's really important because
Absolutely.
suddenly it disappears. What do you do?
Yeah.
Search is over. You think it's gone or it evaporated. No, it just changed its address. So some reasons the privacy and things in the Bluetooth standard there actually help the bad guys, the stalkers, because it's hard to find them.
Yeah, that's interesting because it does seem like it benefits the stalkers. They seem to have more access and leadway to do things, and then the consumer is over here stuck and scared and still trying to figure it out. I wanted to ask
Exactly.
you a quick question about social media.
Yeah, sure.
So many individuals are posting information on social media where a hacker can go on and just see their entire life and what they're doing, where they've gone, where they're coming back from, when they're not home, when they're in the car. Maybe they don't even have to use an AirTag because they can just go on your social media account and see all that information for themselves. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to know if you had any advice for individuals, especially the younger ones, when it comes to social media, their social media accounts like Instagram and Twitter, and how should they be, maneuvering in that atmosphere?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I myself do use social media also, and I have to use a level of caution on it. And what do I mean by that? The purpose of social media is so we can be social, share pictures with our friends, or comment on things, learn things, whatever. Unfortunately, since the bad guys have twisted it and they use it to surveil and learn about our whereabouts, I think it's important for us if we're going to post something on social media, make sure the pictures that we post, we don't have the geocode of the picture, where the picture was taken. We don't provide them specific information when we're traveling. We don't tell them specific details, even to the point every social media account I have, and I think I shared this with you the other week, Val, when we were chatting, I put a different birthday name on it, or the date that I was born. So when you look up Twitter, if you hack into my Twitter account, you see that my birth date on there, it's going to be different than my LinkedIn when I set up. And that's important. Why? Because if they're trying to find out about us and they're trying to take credit out in our name, they're trying to perform identity theft.
Right.
Whatever the case may be, if they have different birth dates from different social media accounts, they call the issuing bank, for example, conversation over. So it's important for us to basically throw a few curveballs in the world of social media. If I go on vacation, I'm not going to post the pictures while I'm on vacation so somebody can rob my house. or somebody could come to my company and try to hack into my computers. I'm going to wait a week or two later and then post things or mix it up a little bit. So I throw out misinformation on the world of social media to make it difficult for people. And that actually helps me to stay more secure.
That's great advice, because I do feel like, when I log into my social media accounts, I sometimes use my date of birth, the exact one, because I'm like, I get confused and I don't want to forget the information that I put. So like you said, getting a little black book and putting it in a safe and then logging that somewhere, that'll help me keep track of the passwords I'm using. I also read up on this way that you can actually put your password in based on how the keyboards are set up, and you put like maybe a letter and a character and then a symbol, and then kind of adjust it in certain ways where you're just going like maybe zigzag, so Z, V, you know what I mean? So are you getting that, where you're just putting that information in so you can remember what you're doing? Because when you have these long passwords, sometimes you forget. So you may have to put something together in a way that you'll remember it. And so patterns, I'm a very visual person. And so I can look at the keyboard, I know where the letters are, I know where the symbols are, and I can put a password together using the keyboard in that fashion. I know. I hope I didn't confuse you on that. But I was trying to explain it. I've never explained that before. It was something new, a new technique that I picked up. But I just wanted to say thanks to Scott. Now, real quick, let's touch on the seniors. My parents are older, and I can't tell you how many times I've had to take their phone from them and clear up a lot of the icons that seem to be spread across the screen in different pages. So they'll have can swipe over 10 times, and contacts is over here and cameras over there. What have you found since you've written a book in regards to the seniors and being cyber secure? What have you discovered in working with seniors and cybersecurity?
Well, I think it's important to understand, first of all, seniors, what they're able to do and what they're comfortable to do. And some things that they're not comfortable to do, with patience and training, you can learn to empower them. In other words, it takes time to sit down and show them how to create a long, strong password, how to log on to a site. But you just don't do it once. When I say the patience comes in, you need to go back and reinforce that next week and the week after until it becomes a healthy pattern where they feel comfortable to do that. And I think that's important. Too many people don't have the patience for seniors. And I talk to so many different seniors at assisted living facilities and senior homes and even my own relatives. And I think that's the number one fundamental thing. I think children of aging parents need to spend the time and they need to build up that trust. Why? Because when the senior is being targeted and potentially hacked, what's going to happen? Hopefully they pause and pick up the phone and call their son, call their daughter, call their trusted confidant that can get an answer and say, wait a minute, grandma, wait a minute, mom, that's a scammer. Don't give them your social security. Don't give them your credit card.
Right. Don't click on that link.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's funny you said patience for the seniors, and I don't think the seniors have patience for us, actually, most of the time.
That could be because we're talking in tech jargon, we're talking too fast, unfamiliar terms. But yet if we back up a couple generations and talk about things maybe when they were growing up, they were actually very savvy. And I try to relate that some of the things in my book, Senior Cyber. For example, when they first got a rotary telephone, what happened? They were polite. They answered it. 2 rings, you had to pick up that phone and say, hello, this is the Schober residence. May I help you? So they were trained to be patient, to be courteous. My kids don't even talk on a phone these days. They text. Everybody texts, or they go through social media apps to communicate. So it's important to understand different generations and how they use technology and make sure that they don't get ahead of themselves. The other thing is you don't want to go out there and get the latest and greatest, iPhone 13 Pro with 9,000 cameras and put that in your grandfather's hands and sit down for 5 minutes, expect him to know how to use it. No. Maybe he needs to get a jitterbug or another phone that's not a smartphone because he doesn't need internet access. He just wants
Okay.
to make a basic phone call or a simple email or text. That's okay too. Use the technology that's appropriate for the generation so they could maximize it and not feel left out of the loop, but feel part of it. And that way they'll
Yeah.
stay safer. And training, teaching them, as you mentioned before, Val, not to click on that phishing email, not to trust that person that calls up and trying to socially engineer them out of their credit card or social security number or a tax refund or whatever the case may be. Education plays such a valuable part there, but that just takes time and effort to properly educate the seniors.
So should a senior use a iOS device or Android? I would think Android's easier, but I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on the person. And I like to do first is kind of surveil, sit down and ask them some questions, feel what their level of comfort is, and ask them, do they need to have internet access on their smart device? Most of the time, you're probably going to find most seniors can't see that well as they're aging 80, 90 years old. If they're in their 60s or 70s, they probably could use a traditional smartphone. What might be better is a tablet for them. Again, it could be a Galaxy, it could be an Apple. I tend to like Apple. I've always used Apple since I was a little kid in the early 70s. So I'm comfortable with their ecosystem. I know how to get around. I know how to keep it secure. Android is a secure device too, but it depends if you're taking the proper precautions on any device to keep it secure. So it's really important to have those conversations before you run out and drop $500 or $1,000 for the latest and greatest smartphone that just sits in the corner. That's a mistake.
Recently switched back to an Android. I started off with Android, got hacked and went to Apple, right, iOS. And I'm not an iOS person. That's my daughter thing. She loves Apple. And I was able to learn how to use Apple devices, but for some reason, I didn't feel as secure just based on what I was seeing on my phone. My iCloud picture kept changing. Hackers kept accessing certain aspects of my settings. And so I went back to Android, and it seems like I can actually help myself and control my environment better. So I guess it's to each their own and how comfortable, like you said, they are in using different, systems, whether it be iOS or Android. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's well said. I think you do have to look at each person and respect it. There is a larger Android user base. Now, that's good because if you need help from somebody, you can get help from somebody that's familiar with an Android. The bad news is cyber criminals know that. What does that mean? They always go for the widest base. In other words, devices that are out there more, operating systems that are out there more, that's what they're going to target because there's more targets. So Apple has had somewhat of an advantage over Android and Galaxy and other things. Now, the exception to that rule is in the United States, Apple actually has a larger market share than a Samsung Galaxy and Android OS and things like that. So in some ways, they're more targeted in the United States. Outside the US, the opposite is true because they just own the world. From a device standpoint, Apple has a much smaller market share. There are certain things in the Apple ecosystem that I think give some enhancements in security. In other words, if you look at the hardware and get more technical and get inside of an iPhone, they actually have a hardware encryption that's called an enclave, a secure enclave. That is not found in a Samsung phone, for example. They focus more on the software encryption. Apple does both hardware and software end-to-end encryption, whereas if you look on a Galaxy, for example, it's software end-to-end encryption. Again, both very secure devices, but Apple would probably have a little bit more of an edge on being secure there. The other thing that to me is very important is looking at the apps, because this is where people fundamentally don't realize things. Apple is very closed-minded and private. You can only get apps from one source, Apple. Right. Why do you think they're the biggest company and make the most money? The advantage of that is they're very careful in vetting to make sure that there's not malware embedded inside of those apps. Again, nothing's 100% secure, but through the Apple ecosystem where you got to go through, and get through the App Store, you could pretty much bet it's going to be secure. Unfortunately, in the world of Android, Samsung, and all, there's a lot of stores, and Google, where you can get apps from multiple spots. What does that tell you? They're not vetted as well, and that's where the hackers are going to target and place malware inside the apps. And that's just statistically true. Therefore, a lot of those apps are going to be more prone to malware, and hence hackers will target and get into your phone. So
Okay.
good and bad and trade-offs there. Either case, have there been malware in iStore? Yeah. Same thing in Google, same thing, all of them. They're all going to get it. It's just a little bit less, I think it's safe to say, in the Apple Store because of the vetting process and security involved.
Yeah, I've heard of that. So I've always wondered then how are they still getting into my information? How do they know every time I change my Apple password? You know, it was confusing, and so I was like, okay, which is safer? Is it Apple or is it Android? And I'd go back and forth simply because it seemed like there was nothing that I could do to prevent the hackers from constantly jumping in and out. And so that leads me to pretty much my last question for our viewers. What is the mindset of these hackers in your opinion? Like what are they really gaining? I know there's a financial gain, but you're stealing someone's identity. You can't really walk into some place and be that person. You got to look like that person. It's bizarre, the mindset of hackers and why they spend so much time. People think hackers are in a dark room with a hood and, they got the keyboard. But that's not necessarily the case, right, Scott?
No. It's probably rarely the case, actually. And really what happens is it's really supply-demand. If we think about it, if you're looking to monetize as a hacker, they're actually running a business. And what do I mean by that? It's so well organized and orchestrated that they have learned how to steal people's personal information, medical information, tax information, go to the dark web, remain anonymous, get paid in cryptocurrency, typically Bitcoin, allowing anonymity and allowing them to have a successful enterprise. If a hacker was to skim your credit card tonight, or an online purchase, they put a keylogger on your Android device and they steal your credit card and sell it, what do you think they would get for that on the dark web? Probably $2. That's not that much money.
No.
So what do? They take your stolen credit card, my stolen credit card, and 10,000 other people, and they'll take 10,000 stolen credit cards, and maybe they'll get $8,000 for that report with all those stolen credit cards. They'll take that in turn and slice it up and send it out to other people that will then buy gift cards. They'll go to people that will take a $100 gift card to Victoria's Secret, and they'll hand it to this woman, and she'll give the hacker $50. She'll go out spending. So they kind of launder all of these things. It's a very weird mentality, but that's how they make their money. Mm-hmm. They fool people, they steal from people, and they take advantage of people. A good cyber criminal will make hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year. A great cyber criminal is going to be making millions of dollars in a year. Now, what are they going to do with that? They're going to go on the dark web, and now they're going to provide, ransomware as a service. In other words, hire other cyber criminals to work for them, where they get a percentage of the action. So now they're not even risking stealing people's money. They're just providing them the toolkits, the knowledge, the know-how, the support, and just raking in money. So it's really a business opportunity. That's how they're profiting from this at our expense.
Okay. Wow. A lot of information, a lot of great information. Stuff that's just, it continues to blow my mind. Yeah. Even though I'm a victim and I've experienced a lot, the more I dig, the more I research, the more I read, the more I learn, I'm just like, what is this? It's like this beast that no one can control.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's just like law enforcement hasn't really been able to do everything they can to understand the cyber security world. It takes people like yourself, Scott, to jump in there and teach them what they need to know and then guide them along the way. So I appreciate you doing that. And I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all this information. So we have 3 of your books I see right there behind you. Cybersecurity is Everybody's Business, Senior Cyber, which is great, and then Hacked Again, which is your first book. So what do you have upcoming? Where can people find you?
Oh, lots of stuff upcoming. Well, I'm working on book number 4, dealing with a lot of things about privacy, and I'm also working on a book about teens and cyber, helping them and educating them. Upcoming, I've got a whole bunch of speaking things for the rest of the year. I'm heading out to Black Hat in Vegas in a couple
Yeah.
weeks. I'm going to DEF CON, a hacking conference out there as well in Vegas. Constantly going to speak, to present, to interview experts, to join great shows like this and spread information to hopefully keep people safe out there.
Yeah, thank you so very much. And if they want to get your books, they can go to your website, correct?
Yeah, certainly they can buy it from my website. They're available there. They can go to Amazon and click the easy button and get the free shipping or whatever else.
Okay.
And if you do buy a book, I'd love to hear the feedback. Be honest and rate it or write a review on it. It helps me improve, hopefully as an author, so I can share things with a larger audience. I really appreciate that.
Okay, we got you. We got you. So thank you so much for joining CyberSecureyou as our first guest from our show. I was very excited to speak to you today, and thank you for sharing the information and giving our viewers information in regards to cybersecurity and what you're doing out there to help us stay safer in this cyber world. So I guess that's what I have to say about that, and thank you for joining us, Scott.
Well, thank you. A privilege to be on with you there, and I encourage everybody out there, don't give up and please stay safe.
Stay safe, y'all.